Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm showing you how I created my design team page for the February challenge at Mystical Scrapbooks. The theme for the month is Hearts and Roses, and the added challenge for this page is to use at least one handmade flower on the page. There will be a link in the description box below to the challenge, so why not pop over and check it out. I'm going to use uniquely creative ocean breeze papers for this layout, and I've used the sandy beach and I've punched around the edge of it with a Martha Stewart die called, I think it's called Flowers. It's an around the page punch. For the other layers on my page I used Sunset Boulevard. Now I cut one piece that was 1 inch wide by 11.5 inches long, that's that stripe. Then I turned it over and used the other side of the paper to cut my next ones. So I cut two pieces that were 4 inches by 10.5 and two pieces that were 2.5 inches by 10.5 inches. When I cut the strips, I made sure I cut the wider ones from the edge that had the flowers so they would peek out from beneath the next layer. I ran the 4 wider strips through my Big Shot using this uniquely creative Napery embossing folder. I had to put it through once, then turn my paper and put it through again so that I could get the full length covered with the embossing. Now that I have all my pieces ready, I'm going to use my black ink cube to ink around the edge of each one of those pattern papers, including the one that I had done the punching around. I wanted to help the embossing stand out a little on my pattern paper, so I used my Versacolor Cinnamon ink cube and just wiped it lightly over the top of the embossed section of the pattern papers. You don't want to do this too heavily, otherwise you'll end up with some stripes on your paper, but you can see that I have got a few areas where it's a bit heavier than others, but basically it's a fairly light coat all over and it just helps that embossing stand out a little more. I'm going to use my art glitter glue now to attach my background, well, my punched pattern paper to my background, which is white cardstock. I'm going to apply a liberal amount of glue, and I'm also going to put some dabs of glue around the edge of the outside of the pattern just so that that sits down nicely and doesn't get caught when I try to put it into my page protectors. Using the glue also allows me a little bit of wriggle room when I'm attaching and making sure that I get it in the centre of the background. I'm going to start attaching my layers now. So first thing I'm going to do is attach that stripe piece to one of the larger pattern paper pieces. I'm trying to make sure that I've got the floral edge of the wider piece to the outside of the piece so that the floral piece will show when I add the next layer on top. I wanted to raise the thinner strips of pattern paper on top of the wider strips of the pattern paper, so I used some chipboard. I cut that into strips and attached that to the back of the 2 inch wide strips or 2.5 inch wide strips so that they will sit above the other 4 inch strips of pattern paper. Once I had my chipboard attached to my thinner strips, I attached them to the wider strips using my glue so that they were about 1/2 inch in from the inside edge of the wider strip. My mat for my photo comes from the uniquely creative Gums and Roses paper range, and it's called Full Bloom. My photo is 5 inches by 7 inches, so I cut my mat 5.25 by 7.25, inked around the edge of it, and then attached my photo on top of it. This photo was cut from a calendar that my granddaughter gave me for Christmas in 2019. I wanted to raise my photo up off of my layout, and to do that I decided to use some fun foam. I cut it to size and then attached it to the back of my photo mat using glue. I do end up coming back and cutting strips so that there is a bit more coverage to the outside, so it's better supported. Time now to attach all of my layers to my base. I'm using double-sided tape to attach those strips of paper and glue to attach the photo. Now for the handmade flower section of the layout. I'm using my Lifestyles Craft nested lace circles, and I've cut 3 of each of the 3 smaller sizes. I'm using the same paper that I used to mat my photo. I'm going to spray these with some water and crunch them up in my hand and then uncrunch them. I let those crunched up circles dry, and then I inked around the edge of them with my black ink cube. I also fussy cut some flowers from the paper called Summer Bloom, and I've inked around those as well. Now I'm going to assemble my flowers. I'm simply going to use glue to attach one layer on top of the other so that I end up with a 3-layered flower. I play around with the placement of my flowers on my layout and then go ahead with my liquid glue and attach those flowers. I'm just using the flat flowers at the moment. I'm going to use this fine white ribbon to tie a bow to put in amongst my flowers. I just cut a length and then tie the bow and then tighten it up. I'm not very good at bows, but this one worked out alright. The ribbon's very fine and it's hard to see in the video here, but you can see it quite nicely in the actual layout. I'm also going to add this pretty scalloped white crocheted lace to the bottom of my photo. I'm going to attach that using glue, but before I go ahead with that I'm going to add some clear gems to the centre of my flowers for a bit of sparkle. Time now to add my bow and my handmade flowers. Once again I'm going to use my glue to do this because it lets me push things around to where I want them to be, and yeah, just a little bit of flexible time. I used my glue to attach 3 little clusters of 3 of the light blue pearls from Uniquely Creative. One at the top right corner of the photo, one at the bottom left corner of the photo, and one just above the flowers on the right hand side of the photo. I always find this job very fiddly and can never get my pearls to stick right way up when I first try. For my title I'm using some sticky letters that I bought, and I've got 3 chipboard hearts. Because the theme is hearts and flowers, I thought I'd better include some hearts. I'm going to use my acrylic paint in a colour called Apricot Preserve and a brush to colour those hearts and those letters. I give them one coat and then I set them aside to dry. Because I've got that paint sitting there, I decide to do some splatters on my page. I cut a mat to the size so that my photo will not get splattered. Then I watered that paint down and used my fan brush to make lots of those Apricot Preserve splatters in the background. Now that my hearts and letters are dry, I use my glue to attach these to my layout. I attach the hearts to the same area as I've put the little blue pearls, so that makes like just a tiny little cluster of pearls and hearts. And the letters I'm going to attach to the left hand side of the photo. I'm going to use my T ruler to help me get those letters straight, and I'm going to use the same art glitter glue to attach them. Will complete my layout for today. Thank you for being here with me. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and if you have, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel. Don't forget, this is a layout for Mystical Scrapbooks, and I will put a link in the description box below, so if you'd like to pop over there and check out the challenge, you may be lucky enough to win the prize. Okay, thank you once again, and I hope you can join me for my next video.